Aloha and welcome back to the Kupuna Connections television show. I'm Cullen Hayashida, one of the co-hosts for this production. My other co-host, Tony Hathaway, unfortunately is not able to join us today. But this program is brought to you by Kapi'olani Community College, and on a weekly basis we cover a whole variety of topics having to do with long-term care issues that seniors and families need to know about, as well as other issues having to do with active aging for our growing numbers of boomers. Today we're very fortunate in that we have a chance to talk to Mr. Scott Gardner, who will be sharing some information and insights with us about financing long-term care, and particularly with reference to Medicaid. So here is Scott Gardner. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you so much, Colin. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Welcome. Perhaps, first of all, Scott, if you could share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, yeah. My name is Scott Gardner, and I've been helping patients and families apply for Quest and Medicaid benefits for 14 years now. And 10 years ago, about almost 10 years ago, I opened up my own practice, my own office. And today, hospitals and nursing homes, as well as individual families, hire our services to guide them through the application process to get these benefits. So we provide a hand-holding service and navigate them all the way through the complexities of this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Long-term care financing is such a complicated as well as a very expensive, process on people when they first are faced with the cost of having to pay this huge bill, are just flabbergasted oftentimes. What I thought we'd do first of all is to perhaps share some information. We obviously won't have a lot of time to deal with this, but perhaps provide some general information about different kinds of insurances and financing things that exist beyond Medicaid. So we want to focus on Medicaid today, of course, but let's talk about some of these other ones. Medicare. Tell us about what Medicare is.
Okay, yeah, it's very confusing, and the healthcare is very, very expensive. Medicare and Medicaid, so confusing, especially for the older folks.
Okay.
How we like to break it down is that Medicare is when you turn age 65. As long as you work, you pay taxes into the system, you can get Medicare. It's not based on income or asset limits. As long as you work, paid, and that would be normally your primary insurance. The other hand, the one that I help do is Medicaid. And how we help differentiate the two is when you look at aid at the end of Medicaid, it's asking for more government assistance. So whenever you ask for government assistance, the criteria is just normally stricter.
I see. So when you say Medicare, we're talking about just regular health insurance.
Correct.
Payment to go to the doctor, payment to go to the hospital perhaps, but not really for long-term care, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And Medicare comes in three parts, and generally in three parts. Part A covers the bulk of hospital costs. Part B will cover doctor visits. And then Part D, as everyone knows, is for drug or medication. So it becomes the primary insurance, but it doesn't cover everything, and especially it doesn't cover long-term care.
Okay, here's another word.
Okay.
Long-term care insurance.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay. Oftentimes people ask, or they say, I don't need Medicaid because I already have long-term care insurance. But we have to look at the policy. We have the families go back and look at the policy and read the fine print and see how much it pays per day. For example, some of the policies were written long ago, so it hasn't caught up with today's cost and time. Most of the nursing facilities are already at the $300 daily rate. Some of the insurances, the long-term care insurances that we've been seeing, only pay maybe 100 or 150 if you're
particularly lucky. The old ones, the ones that people bought a long time ago.
Correct. And then there's big differences in the policy if it pays for home health or care home, foster home, or nursing home. And also have to look carefully at the elimination period, which is essentially a waiting period. Some are 30 days, some are 90 days, some are 100 days before you can tap into those benefits.
I guess a good way of thinking about the elimination period is like a deductible, huh?
Correct, correct, yeah.
So you need to pay that portion before the insurance can actually begin to start.
Yeah.
see.
Long-term care is good, but it may not be enough. And if nursing home is already $300 a day times 30 days, that's some nursing homes are already in the $11,000 a month.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's
Very few people make that kind of money every month.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you did have the resources, it'll wipe you out in no time.
In no time, yeah.
Okay.
Now, is it possible to have both long-term care insurance and Medicaid?
Yes, you can. You can have both. Medicaid is always on the last to pay. So if there's any other funding sources out there, one is assets. You cannot have too much assets, so you would pay that first. But if you have long-term care, that would also go towards the nursing costs, and well as your income. If you're single or widowed, your monthly income would be owed, and then whatever balance is left over, that's what Medicaid would pick up.
Now, some people say, you know, I've got Kaiser, I've got HMSA. What do you say to them?
Okay, those insurances are very, very good insurances, and especially when people have dual coverage, for example, Medicare in combination with HMSA or Kaiser Senior. Very good insurance when it comes to hospital visits and doctor visits. For the bulk of everything, we call it full coverage. You know, for the most part, everything's going to be covered. But those insurances do not pay for long-term care. It'll pay for skilled nursing care. So what that means is when a person goes from hospital setting, they stabilize, and then they transition to let's say a rehab facility, HMSA, Medicare, or Kaiser altogether will only pay up to 100 days worth of coverage at the skilled level, and that's where they do the physical therapy. Now, even though there's 100 days worth of coverage, no patient will ever get 100 days worth of exercise. Normally at that point in time, at the skilled level, there's only about 2 weeks worth of physical therapy, and after 2 solid good weeks of therapy, a decision can normally be made. So the exercises they're very aggressive, very vigorous, and the goal is to get the person strong enough so that they can get discharged and go back home. So if they go back home, perfect. But sometimes, depending on the age or the illness, they just cannot make those significant gains. So if there's no improvement, the physical therapy can be cut short within the 100 days, so let's say 2 weeks. And then a decision will be made, can the patient go back home with family? If the family is still working and can't do it, can't provide that 24-hour care, then they'll look at transitioning to a different setting, which is maybe nursing home, foster home, or care home.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, you used a word, of course, that we hear a lot about. You mentioned, of course, hospital care and physician office visits and that sort of thing, and then you mentioned long-term care. What constitutes long-term care type service? Of course, we know that nursing home care is long-term care services, but what else is included in that?
In long-term care? Yeah, I mean, there could be a variety of things from homemaking chore services.
To that extent.
Yeah, to that extent, all the way up to total care or in-home care or in a facility.
I see. As long as you show some sign of perhaps disability and you're in a home setting, you could qualify for some of that type of chore type services.
For long-term care, disability?
Yes.
Yeah, perhaps, depending on the policy. So you
Depending on the policy.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if anyone's got a long-term care policy, go check it out, get it reviewed, call the company and get that updated.
Okay.
Good, yeah.
Okay. Good. Let's focus now, on Medicaid, which is your forte, your area of specialty. Tell us a little bit about how a person is qualified. Let's see. First of all, we've got this slide here that helps us understand what Medicaid is all about. Here, this slide that should come up. That's the first slide with regards to the different
levels. If we can talk briefly about this.
Sure, yeah, please do.
Yeah, so going back to the insurances like Medicare, HMSA, and Kaiser, these are the different levels of care. And at the top is when the person is most ill, and at the bottom is the most healthiest for the aging population.
Okay.
What traditionally happens is an older person will have a medical episode, wind up in the hospital. So hospital setting, full coverage, Medicare, HMSA, Kaiser. Then when they stabilize in the hospital, they'll drop down to the skilled level. And at the skilled level, that's where they do the physical therapy, and that's where they have the 100 days worth of coverage. Okay. But if no improvement there with the physical therapy, then they're going to drop down to the intermediate level, which is nursing home. Okay. Big difference between nursing home, foster home, and care home. People use those terms kind of loosely, but big difference. Nursing home, or ICF, Intermediate Care Facility, that one can range about $10,000 to $11,000 a month, and no coverage. So either cash, if you look on the far right, it's either cash or Medicaid if you qualify.
I see.
Okay, so cash also could mean long-term care assistance as well.
Okay.
Okay, the next level down is foster home. So foster home is about half the cost, is about $5,000 a month, and the folks at that level only need moderate nursing care. So they can kind of help themselves with some ADLs.
ADLs?
Yes.
Meaning?
Or the activities of daily living.
Okay.
Sorry. And because they only need moderate assistance, that's why the cost is reduced. It's still expensive though. At least $5,000 a month.
Still a big chunk of change.
Yeah. And but the good news is Medicaid can pay for that when the person qualifies. Okay. Now at the very bottom is care home. Now care home is not considered a medical facility in the eyes of Medicaid. Folks who go there, they may be elderly and slow to get around, but they're still high functioning. Feed themselves, get around, use the restroom, bathe. So minimum assistance at all. But that one is purely cash, no Medicaid.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that helps us to see that that differentiation. Yeah. So now Medicaid.
Okay, Medicaid.
Let's
okay.
look at this next slide here that we have.
So what we got?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Medicaid, yes. When you see that AID, we're asking for government assistance, and that's kind of the trigger to let folks know that when you're asking for this type of assistance, the criteria is really, really strict.
What does really, really strict mean?
Okay. Strict meaning if you're a single person or widowed, the most you can have in the bank or any assets combined is just $2,000.
Only $2,000 in the
Yes,
bank.
yes.
Okay.
1 penny over, denied, too rich.
No.
Yeah.
No budging on
Correct.
fudging on
Yeah.
that. Huh?
1 penny over. Medicaid will say, go spend that penny down, come back and
come back.
reapply in the future.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's,
So-
you know, the cash assets.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the monthly? Is there any kind of limits on the monthly that you can have?
You know, now, this is the tricky part for most folks. The income and asset criteria is very, very different if a person is at home versus in a nursing home. So I think we have a slide on
Okay,
the
let's
income
look
and
at the
assets.
next slide here.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So Medicaid is very strict, and when they receive the application, they want to know, where is Cullen? Is he at home or in a nursing home? Okay. If you're still at home, you could be ill and needing to go nursing home, but if you're physically at home, they are going to look at the top left criteria. Okay. Most folks
$1,072
gross
per month.
per month.
Per month.
Gross.
That's the most that you can have.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, and you cannot have more than
$2,000 in the bank. Okay.
Okay. Most folks, they're on fixed income, but most folks earn more than this per month. Small Social Security and a pension,
Right.
maybe $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So Medicaid says if you're at home and you make less than $1,072 and you have less than $2,000 in the bank, then Medicaid can help you. You pass the income and asset test for Medicaid while at home. Okay. Now it changes completely if you go into a nursing home. Okay. The asset limit is still the same. All your bank accounts cannot be more than $2,000, but income-wise, it doesn't matter how much you earn. The reason for that is the deal with Medicaid is whatever you earn, your Social Security and pension, whatever you earn every month, you are going to give that to the nursing facility every month. Okay? All you get to keep every month is just $50 a month for personal allowance. They call it haircut money. If you pay for HMSA or Kaiser, they allow you to set aside money to continue to pay that. And then the leftover, that's what you would owe to the nursing facility.
Oh, I see, I see. Okay.
So the more money you make, the more money you give. But essentially, you're giving up all of your income.
I see, I see. Okay.
So that's a single situation.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And now we've got another slide after
Okay.
that
Okay.
that also points out some other things with regards to Medicaid. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, we call this the four main tests. Now, Medicaid is really strict, meaning, Medicaid is an as-need type program. From what I found out over these 14 years is, what I come to figure out is you cannot go to Medicaid for pre-approval, or you can't go too far in advance. You got to meet these four main tests or these four main prerequisites in order for Medicaid to entertain your application. Okay. So from the top, you have to meet the nursing criteria.
Level of care.
Level of care. So doctor fills that out, and then it goes on a point system, 16 out of 30 points. So 16 says that you have a combination of health issues going on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you got to be either in a foster home or a nursing home. Okay, because remember that income and asset criteria test?
Yes.
Okay. So you got to be in a facility. Then the second one is the asset test. Cannot have more than $2,000 in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got to make sure you spend down in advance before applying for Medicaid.
But for married people, you can have a considerably more.
Yes, in a married situation on assets, if there's a healthy spouse at home, let's say the wife is at home, then the asset limits jump up to $115,000, and the new amount this year is $115,920.
That includes the cost of the house? Or?
House exempt. You're normally allowed to have one house as long as it's not.
So that
in trust.
$115,000 could be in the bank?
Yeah, cash.
Cash
bank
in the bank.
accounts, stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, add them all together. Cannot be more than $115,000.
As long as you're married, you can have that much money.
Correct. And still qualify for Medicaid. Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now Medicaid, the big significance is because the healthy spouse is still at home. She still needs to maintain the maintenance, the food, the mortgage, and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then the third criteria?
Okay, the third is trust, property in
Property.
trust.
Okay.
Medicaid allows you to have one house. Traditionally, it doesn't matter what the value is, but as long as it's your primary residence, as long as that's where you live, you can have one house, but it cannot be in a trust. Medicaid feels that you've transferred ownership of the house. You no longer own it, but your trust owns it. And we can talk a little bit more about liens. Medicaid wants to place a lien on a person's house, but if it's in trust, it blocks the Medicaid lien. So no deal if your house is in trust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in a trust situation, then, and you're disabled and really need nursing home care, you may be out of luck.
Yeah, then what families have to do or patients have to do is seek an attorney, take the property out of trust.
Out of trust.
And then they call it putting it back into your own individual name.
I see, I see. And hopefully you're of sound mind.
Correct, yeah.
To be able to do that, I
Correct,
guess. Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Now, what about this thing having to do with this last criteria on the look back?
On the 5-year look back? Okay.
Yes.
Medicaid, going back to aid, asking for assistance, Medicaid frowns upon people giving away their assets. They know the asset limit is $2,000 or $115,000. Sometimes people have more than that. So Medicaid looks for any type of transfers or giftings of money. So if there are assets that were purposely given away to qualify for Medicaid, that could backfire on the person's application. So for example, if nursing home costs roughly about $10,000 a month, and I give away $10,000 to my grandkids, it's going to affect my application because let's say last year I gave away $10,000. They would say, Scott, your application received is going to be denied 1 month because I just freely gave away 1 month's worth of cash.
And this 5-year look back, what does that mean?
Okay, so if I turn in my application today, they're going to ask me, Scott, in the last 5 years, did you or your wife give away any money or property away in the last 5 years?
Just to qualify, to go under that.
Correct.
I see.
And Medicaid could count all the gifts over the last 5 years, bring it forward to today, and then assess the applicant a penalty.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about what does Medicaid lien mean?
Okay. The Medicaid lien, this normally scares people the most, is especially for single people or widowed. If you own a house or a condo property and you apply for Medicaid for nursing home, Medicaid will want to place a lien on your house. And what that means is for however much money Medicaid pays on your nursing care, in the end, when the person passes away, the state will want to recover or recoup some money by way of the house. So normally that scares a lot of people.
Now, if there's a married couple in this situation, does that still apply, that the lien would be on the house for the second person?
Okay. Now, if there's a married situation and the healthy spouse is at home, Medicaid will evaluate the situation. They know that the spouse is in the house, so it does not call for Medicaid to place a lien. But let's say the wife, who's the healthy one, unexpectedly passes first. Now the patient becomes single status. Then Medicaid wants to place the lien on the house.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Now, if one of the adult children also has their name on the property, does that become a problem as far as applying for Medicaid?
No, there can be multiple owners on the property. Let's say your house is joint owner with your son, for example. Medicaid will just place a lien on your half or your portion only. They will not go in, dip into your son's portion. But there are ways to still protecting the house. If there's an adult caregiver child who's been living in the house at least 2 years before you entering the nursing facility, Medicaid will allow you to transfer your house to that adult child who took care of you for 2 years without any penalty.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Medicaid feels that that child took care of you, delayed you from going into the nursing home sooner, delayed you from tapping into Medicaid benefits sooner. So Medicaid gives a break for that.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
So you got to transfer before applying for Medicaid.
I see.
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there are some health plans that are associated with Medicaid now.
Correct.
How does, and so, you know, you hear about the Ohana Health Plan, or United Health Plan, and, you know, United Care Health Plan, and so on. What does that mean as far as, you know, how does that relate to Medicaid?
Okay. Medicaid recently, well, a few years ago, what they've done is turn it over the responsibility to 2 health plans, Ohana and United Health, and they call it managed care. So what that is supposed to do is to be more efficient for their recipients to get access to quicker care. They can do more outreach, and also for these health plans, let's see, that it overall is to improve access and ultimately cut costs for the health plans because they're monitoring their clients very carefully. So every recipient of Medicaid will have a service coordinator, and anytime this person needs services or extra follow-up, they will be involved and in tune with their patient and ultimately saving the state some money.
Okay, now we also heard about some of these case management agencies that are working with the Ohana Health Plan or this, you know, or with Medicaid. What are they?
Okay, case management agencies, there's about, there used to be about 20 of them before, but now they've really downsized to maybe, I'm not sure the exact amount, let's say less than 2 handfuls.
Is that
of
right?
agencies right now.
Wow.
And a person who needs admission into a foster home, it's required by the state that every person go through a case management agency for admission into a foster home. And the case management agency, they are tied into these health plans, and what they do is they'll come out, for example, to the house or to the hospital and do the assessment on the patient, see what kind of client is coming their way, and based on the patient's needs, they will find a right match of foster homes.
I see, okay. Now, there's so much to know, and you know, this is getting pretty complicated probably for our viewers, but what should families do to plan for all of this? What would you say?
Yeah, I would start right now. You know, these things really sneak up on folks. Start looking at their parents' income and bank statements to see what kind of investments they have. Looking at the property, if they have a trust. And a lot of times, most of these folks do have trusts.
Yeah.
And start compiling those documents. And then maybe meeting up with the family attorney or go and seeking some help.
Yeah.
Just get an overall view.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating when you don't know enough, you know, until the very end, and then of course, you know, things really get out of hand. Now, what you have a service that you provide the community. Tell us a little bit about what you folks do.
Okay, over at Scott Gardner, well, we're a local company, we're a private company. Hospitals and nursing homes contract us, and individuals contract us. But what we do is we provide a hand-holding service and guide them, help them understand the criteria, help them fill out the application.
Do you have a website? We
Yes.
have information with your phone number there,
Yes.
but we forgot to put your
Okay.
website. What was that?
Yes, it's www.scottgardnerco.com.
Okay.
Or if you just Google Scott Gardner, Hawai'i Medicaid, and pop up.
Okay, okay. So we got that information. We'll just Google your name,
Okay.
and something will pop up. Now, we've heard, again, a lot of things and a lot of information, and I'm sure that the community has benefited a lot from this. But with all this information, and if we had just one takeaway for our viewers, what would that be?
Yeah,
What
start
would you-
planning.
Start planning.
Yeah, planning
Okay.
right now.
Okay, so that's a good point, and maybe start some conversations with your family, I guess. Huh?
Correct, correct. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So thank you very much,
You're
Scott,
welcome.
for joining us, and aloha everyone for joining us again on Kupuna Connections television program. We've been fortunate to have this discussion on financing long-term care about Medicaid with Scott Gardner. Again, I hope if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Mr. Gardner, and hopefully you'll get all the information that you need. Thank you again for watching, and see you again next week. Aloha.